Hey, I'm gonna give you a quick demo of buttercut. Buttercut is basically two pieces. It's a bunch of Claude code skills that you can use to analyze your footage and generate rough cuts in YAML form. And then it's a Ruby library that can actually generate XML for Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere. Let's create a new library. There's a library skill that I've created. It's gonna load up that skill, and that just tells it like what files to make, what the file structure looks like, and kind of like what it can do with this library. Cool, it's gonna ask us a few questions. Cool, what do you wanna name it? I'm gonna call it Dog's Best Day. And then I'm gonna go and grab a folder of videos. This folder has a ton of videos in it, so I'm actually gonna interrupt Claude and I'm gonna say, just grab the 5 smallest clips to import first. I'm gonna go to libraries, and then you can see I already have 2 libraries. I've got one with wedding footage from my wedding, and then I have another one from a vlog that I made going to like a Ruby meetup. I hope this is still readable, but you can see right now it's gonna use some sub-agents to actually start processing all this video. First, I think it's looking at like metadata. Now we should have this, Dog's Best Day. Cool. Now it's gonna do what is probably the most time-consuming process, which is actually just transcribing the audio of the videos. We use WhisperX here. If you just use Whisper to make transcriptions, the timing maps aren't accurate. So instead we use WhisperX, which basically makes a transcript with like word by word timings. This is sort of essential so that the LLM can read the script and then like know where to cut the footage. Okay, we should have a folder here now where we have rough cuts, transcripts, and a library.yaml. The library.yaml is sort of a bunch of state for what this library is. So it has the name of it, when it was created. And then I also have a couple keys that basically just make it so it's like easier for the LLM to know what the footage is and know what the user wants to build with it. The most important part is this videos key, which is an array of paths to videos. And then we also sort of store the state of the processing right here and right here, the transcript path and the visual transcript path. Now that the audio transcripts are done, we're gonna make something called a visual transcript, which is basically just looking at frames in the video and then writing descriptions of what's in the frame. For short clips, like 30-second clips, we just look once because I figure that's probably gonna be the same thing. For larger clips, we kind of do like a binary search. So we look at the very beginning of the video, the very end of the video, and the middle, and then we see like, oh, is it changing over time? And if it is, then Claude will like keep looking at more frames and keep updating the visual transcripts so that you can see like what's actually going on. This is gonna take a little bit to process, so I'm actually gonna open up a library that's done and has lots of footage in it. Let's open up the programmer vlog library. Cool. Now that we have this library opened up, we can have it make a new rough cut for us. I think this is gonna be really helpful for 2 different things. One is just making like entire rough cuts, and you can have sort of like another assistant editor make a cut for you in maybe like a structure or format that you wouldn't do. I think it's also helpful when you just have like a ton of footage and you don't necessarily know like what the narrative should look like. And then I think the final thing that is maybe most interesting is just having Claude make like short sequences for you. So you can sort of still decide what the entire video looks like, but you can say like, oh, let's just put together a B-roll sequence, or I've got, you know, a bunch of intro footage and I want you to cut it down to something. So for this library, the programmer story vlog, I'm gonna show you what the footage looks like real quick in Final Cut Pro. Basically, I've got some footage of me sort of talking about the early days of my programming career, and how much like Ruby meetups meant to me. Then I've got some B-roll footage in my neighborhood. And then I've got some footage taking the bus to downtown. And then down here, we finally get to like sort of the payoff, which is we actually get to a Ruby meetup that's current. But basically there's like a lot of footage here, and we can use Claude to make an entire rough cut with it. Let's create, I can't see where I'm typing. Let's create a new rough cut. The rough cut skill basically just looks at all of the visual transcripts and then puts together a YAML file with just an array of clips with timings. After it actually reads the footage, then it's gonna ask us like some additional questions about what we want. These are dynamic and are just based off what the visual transcripts say. Let's start with just presentations. Keep these clips short, 5 seconds each. Then go to interviews. Then close with my footage outside at night, talking about how grateful I am for the Ruby community. Duration, let's aim for 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll say conversational pacing, and go. It looks like it's finished a rough cut, which we can just look at that over here, and it gives us some notes about what actually happened. But like the most important part is here are the clips. And again, these are just source files with in points and out points. It also includes the dialogue, so you can sort of like skim along and see what it's picked up. So it's built a rough cut for us, and it's also made a Final Cut Pro file that we can open up. Sometimes what I like to do here is before I even like move over to my editor, I'll just see like what is the full dialogue that it used. So I'll ask for that. While it's grabbing the whole dialogue though, why don't we import this into Final Cut Pro? Import XML, rough cuts, this guy. Cool. We've got some meetup coverage. Then we have our interviews with some Rubius.
My hometown is...
You can either... Okay.
Then we end it with what I asked for.
What a nice group of people. I'm sure this is going to sound like a little bit of an overstatement, but I think that my entire career...
It's a little bit slow, but we can cut that down. But again, we can just ask for that. We can say, let's cut this in half, or let's cut down the interviews in half to just the punchy parts. It's pretty nice. It's Claude, so it's quite smart. Next steps for this is I'd love you to try it out and see if you can actually get this to work on your machine. I think the nice part is that Claude is pretty forgiving and pretty capable of making this work. I'm also applying to the Winter Y Combinator batch with this. If you're at YC, please look for the buttercut application and give it a strong thumbs up. Also should give huge thanks to Chris Hawking and Andrew Arrow, who made some really great open source Final Cut Pro libraries. Thanks a bunch.